Hello everyone, Matteo here again, and today I welcome you here in my little RC garage to make a short comparison between the two Tamiya cross-country chassis, the CC-01 and the new CC-02. The first thing we can see is the CC-02 is a completely new design chassis. It's not only a modified CC-01, it's completely new. Only for the differential gears in the axles are on both chassis the same parts used. Here you can see the basic construction of the CC-01. Its big bathtub chassis is very striking and the integrated fenders are well visible. As you can see here, the CC-02 chassis have a classic leather frame construction and have no fenders on the chassis. From underneath we can see here also the big differences between these two cars. The CC-01 chassis with its independent front suspension and the 4-link suspension with rigid axle at the rear. And the CC-02 chassis with the 4-link suspension in front and at the rear. This is one of the biggest differences. The independent front suspension of the CC-01 to the rigid axle and 4-link suspension in front and at the rear on the CC-02 chassis. Here you can see the differences of the dampers. As you can see, the dampers on the CC-02 chassis are much bigger, and they work also better. The stock CC-01 dampers are way too hard, and they need some modifications to work fine. I've already shown this in my other videos. But the CC-02 dampers works fine how it comes without modifications. One of the biggest disadvantages of the CC-01 was the weak steering linkage with a lot of play and a very big turning radius. Also here the CC-02 chassis improves this a lot. The steering servo is installed on the chassis over the front axle, and so a very short linkage offers a precise steering without a lot of play. Also the turning radius is much better, as you can see here. A small improvement is also the small box to protect the receiver. On the CC-01 chassis there was nothing to protect the receiver. On a CC-01 chassis, the battery tray was round-shaped, exactly how the classic stick-pack batteries were shaped. So only this kind of batteries could be installed without modifications. This is another improvement on the new CC-02 chassis. Here, the battery compartment is much bigger and so a big variety of batteries, such as rear LiPos, can be installed without problems. Now let's talk about the gearbox. On both chassis the gearbox is completely sealed. But on the CC-01 chassis it was only one gear ratio possible. Of course it could be adjusted with different pinning gears. But overall the gear ratio was very long and the car was too fast for a scalecrawler or trail truck. Now on the CC-02 chassis the gearbox is also sealed. But we can choose two different gear ratios. One is low gear and the other is standard gear ratio. In standard gear ratio the CC-02 have nearly the same speed as the CC-01 chassis in stock condition. So I recommend to use the low gear ratio, because this kind of chassis is not built to go on high speed runs. But does the CC-01 only have disadvantages? No, this is not true. For example, the inner fenders on the bathtub. Inner fenders are very nice, improve the scale lock and protect the inner parts good against dirt and water. Also, the independent front suspension can be an advantage. Some scale builders like to use a chassis that equals to its real counterpart. Many real off-road cars have independent suspension in front, and the CC-01 chassis is a good choice to rebuild this as model. But there is a disadvantage on both models: the much too hard stock tires. These are hard as hell and not really usable on off-road terrain. That's why I installed here on my CC-02 tires from MST. These are much softer and offers much more grip on the trails. The CC-02 is really a good chassis, and it has many improvements compared to the CC-01 chassis. But it has also some small problems. The design of the lower links is not the best in my opinion. Because of this shape here and the mounting position of the links, the ground clearance is lower as possible, and rocks and other obstacles touching here the chassis. Also here, a flat skid plate would be better to slip over rocks. But you can see here are a lot of parts where the chassis can stuck and lost the traction. But this is only one small disadvantage. Overall, the CC-02 chassis is a very good scale crawler. Of course, it has not the same performance as an SX10 or TRX4, but this is clear with the small tires and more street-legal design. The CC-02 works well out of the box, and this is not the same with the CC-01 chassis. The CC-01 chassis needs some modifications and improvements to get a proper working scale truck. I've already made some videos of these modifications. You can find the link in the video description. You can find also some running videos of both models. Now I say thanks for watching, and please give me a thumbs up if you liked this information. And subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. See you soon on Matthews RC Movies.